Hello and welcome to Soundproof. Today I will be demonstrating how to download a new operating system to a computer or laptop. I will be using Windows 10 for the demonstration. The only needed materials are the computer the OS is going to be downloaded to, a USB drive with a bootable OS installer, and an internet connection. Step 1. Physical assembly. All the work that you need to do for this is to plug in your computer or laptop if it isn't so already, and then take your USB port carrying a bootable drive and go ahead and plug it into your computer. Step 2. Accessing the BIOS. When you first power on your computer, begin to gently tap the F2 button on your keyboard until eventually you will enter the BIOS, also known as the Basic Input-Output System. This will bring you to a menu where you can access different parts about how your computer itself will operate. Step 3. Changing the primary boot. Normally, the BIOS will search the internal hard drive for an operating system to boot. Accessing the BIOS before it boots anything is how you change the priority. Most BIOS menus are pretty straightforward and only have one screen. Mine's a little unordinary and has a few different tabs for menus, but it's no big deal. If the BIOS does have tabs, there should be one that references the boot drives or boot priorities, so obviously just select that one. Now that everyone is on the same page, there should be a list of different drives and locations the computer will search for a bootable program. Use this list to reprioritize the USB bootable drive as the primary option. Now, depending on how your BIOS is set up, you may have an exit option. Here I'm going to select Save and Exit, but if it doesn't have such an option, you can always just power off your computer and power it right back on. Step 4. The first time run. When restarting the computer, it may solicit you to press a key to access a boot menu or first time run menu. Accessing this menu only serves as a way to assure that the USB is selected as the booted device. The menu layout will reflect that of your BIOS, so just use arrow keys or your mouse to scroll over to the USB and select it as the booted device. Now your computer will run the bootable software on the USB drive. Step 5. Navigating the OS installer. Now that the USB drive is in control, it's going to show you a menu of the OS installer. The first page is just going to ask for your language and your keyboard layout. Once you hit accept, it's going to prompt you with Install Now. It's the only option on the screen, so go ahead and give it a click. Next, it asks for a Windows Product Access Key. It's not necessary. You can continue, download Windows 10, and use most of its functions without a product access key. I do have one for this run, so I'll just go ahead and put that in. Here is the selection screen for the different varieties of Windows 10. Each of them has their own benefits compared to each other. I will be selecting Windows 10 Pro. It's just the one that I'm used to the most and have the most experience with. The next step is the terms and conditions. It's really your choice whether or not you read the terms and conditions, but when you accept and continue, you are held responsible for everything written, regardless as to whether or not you actually read it. Next, you choose between the suggested settings and custom settings. Ultimately, it's just deciding where the OS is going to be installed to. Normally, it's not a big deal, but I have a specific place in mind, so I will be selecting the custom settings. Next, we're going to select a drive. Select a drive. Michael? Alright, looks like we're doing a surprise step. The computer ran into some trouble trying to recognize the drive we were instructing it to download to. It took a decent amount of time for the error to be recognized, diagnosed, and then eventually dealt with. Now, of course, it would be helpful if I go into the list of every single possible problem you could run into throughout this process. It would be impossible to cover all of that in a single video. Whenever you work with computers, understand, people have been building, modifying, and of course fixing computers since the invention of the computer, and likewise, People have been making videos about how to build, modify, and fix computers since the invention of YouTube. The internet is your friend whenever you have a problem with a piece of technology. Not just I, but even my tech support Mikester went to the internet to help find the root cause of our problem, and thankfully found the problem as well as the solution, which brings us to Step 6, the easy part. Right now, you just want to hang back while the computer processes all the information you've given it and it downloads the operating system to your hard drive. Depending on the specs of the computer, you might want to have something nearby to occupy the time, like a video game, or a book, or all 3 parts of The Godfather. This could take some time, to the point that it even seems like it might have run into a fatal error. It hasn't. It just needs time to process and download. And once it's done processing and downloading, it'll lead you right into Step 7, OS Setup. Your operating system will begin to ask you questions about your personal preferences for how you want your operating system to be set up. For me, I have Windows 10 and it would show me the bouncing ring of Cortana. This part of the process actually would involve a decent amount of personal information that I don't want to blur, so instead I am skipping altogether. It will go ahead and it will lead you every step of the way. It holds your hand throughout the entire process. As such, it can be redacted without you really missing any important bits of information. Right now it's loading up some finishing touches. It's getting the rest of your OS assembled, bringing you straight to your desktop or home screen. At this point, you have a fully functioning OS downloaded to your hard drive, meaning you can now safely eject your USB bootable drive. Step 8. Installing software. This can be the most lengthy and even the most annoying part about replacing an OS on your computer. You end up with a bunch of default software that simply comes with the OS. This often fails to include a lot of software you want to have on your computer, and includes a lot of software you don't really ever use. So instead of taking your time to download each individual software, there's a website called Ninite, N-I-N-I-T-E, where you can choose multiple pieces of software and download them all at once with a custom-built installer wizard. It's fast, easy, and it makes getting a computer set up a cinch. Well, there you have it. That is how you replace your operating system on your computer and or laptop, along with a few other bits of advice. I hope seeing this video has been as helpful to you as making it was for me. Thank you for stopping by.